Hi, today I'll be demonstrating our ServiceNow integration with OpenText Core Content following an HR use case. For the demo, we're going to have an employee access the ServiceNow portal to make an HR request, attaching any required files inside of the form. And afterwards, an agent is going to pick up the request to perform work on it. There's going to be a back and forth between the agent and the requester, exchanging documents along the way. This exchange of documents is done with our integration with Core Content. So content is stored outside of ServiceNow, and yet this external content will be seamlessly accessible from within the ServiceNow UI, allowing for effortless collaboration. So let's actually now begin as the employee James Abraham, and he's already logged in and inside of the ServiceNow HR portal. And from here, he can create a new HR case where he wants to request a leave of absence for medical reasons. Namely, he has an upcoming procedure and he needs some time to recover. Let's select a specific service for requesting a leave of absence and have James fill out the rest of the form. Afterwards, he will also upload a letter and a doctor's note. And these can be submitted. So once the case is created, some automation is going to be done behind the scenes. A workspace in OpenText Core Content will be created, and all ServiceNow attachments will be moved over to it. This workspace encapsulates all of the information and documents pertaining to the ServiceNow case, and ServiceNow metadata is replicated and then stored into this same workspace as well. So you might have noticed that from the updates in the activity log that those original ServiceNow attachments were being deleted as they get moved over to Core Content. So this is just to ensure that that these documents are stored in one place instead of being scattered across multiple systems. So now to actually access the external workspace and in turn the content, we can open up the Core Content Workspace tab where we will be greeted with a folder view. And we can see that this workspace was configured by an administrator to follow a certain subfolder structure. So all HR cases that were created inside of ServiceNow are mapped one-to-one with these corresponding workspaces, and each one will follow this same structure. So before actually looking at the content, we can take a look at the properties of the workspace. And as mentioned before, ServiceNow data is replicated and stored into this workspace as metadata. So we can kind of see a couple of fields that have been mapped, such as the HR case number, so 1040. And we can even see things like the specific service that was chosen, the priority, and even the descriptions that were filled out by James earlier inside of that form. Now, we can actually view the content, which is stored inside of this documentation folder. So this is where those original ServiceNow attachments were moved to. So unlike in ServiceNow, content can be previewed directly without having to download them. For example, we can preview this leave of absence letter directly, and a side panel will pop up, which we can expand to a full view. And said viewer offers a couple of other features, such as support for multiple file types, printing, and even downloading. And of course, we can also search for text inside a document. For example, we can search for the name James, and it will take us directly to where that specific string of text is. Another thing is that James himself can actually upload content directly into this workspace, which allows any employee to bypass ServiceNow entirely. So perhaps in some circumstances, the agent is going to request additional documents, so James will be able to easily drag and drop these files in. Or maybe James will even need to make an amendment to a certain document. For example, he can upload a new version of this leave of absence letter by going over to this context menu and clicking on Add Version. And a file picker will appear off screen, but I just uploaded a new version of the leave of absence letter, and we can see that a new version has been added. So we can see here that employees have the ability to interact with this external content from within a single page inside of the service portal. Though agents themselves will also have that same ability within their own views as well. So for this next part, we can walk through a basic workflow of an agent who's going to be working on this case. So I'll actually go ahead and switch windows, and we can see that we're now logged in as Boris Young, who is an HR agent inside of this HR management portal. So we can refresh the list of cases and pick up that newly created case. As we can see in the description, James left an attached letter and doctor's note, but as we have seen before, both of those documents are inside of Core Content now. So before we actually do anything with the content inside, we can just set the state of the case to work in progress, and we'll be able to access those same documents by opening up the Core Content Workspace widget off to the side here. So just like with James, he'll see that same view with the folder view here, after a moment. And once this is loaded, we can actually access those same documents inside of the documentation folder. All right, everything's been loaded, and we can just go into the documentation folder where Boris will review those documents in more detail. So for this leave of absence letter, Boris here has the same access to that view, which you can pop up to expand to the full view. And from here, we can just quickly skim through this and look for anything that's of concern. Though there's really nothing here. The gist of it is that James will have surgery on the 1st of February, and his doctor advises him to rest until the 16th. So we don't have any questions or concerns with this specific letter here. As for the doctor's note, it gives us the same, it pretty much tells us the same information, but we can confirm that since it does come from James's doctor, that we can confirm that the surgery will in fact take place in this time frame. So one thing that I'd like to highlight is that agents also have the ability to set annotations on top of the document. So we can actually toggle off this other side panel, go into the tools, and agents have a couple of things that they could do in regards to annotations, such as creating rectangles or creating shapes overall, marking specific areas with text. So let's say, since this did come from a doctor, we could say confirm, and we can even redact certain areas of the text as needed. And there's also text highlighting options. So we can in fact save these, but one thing is that these annotations, after being saved, it doesn't mean that they're permanently burnt into the document yet. So there is an option to publish this document with annotations burned in if it's necessary, pretty much. But anyways, everything looks good, and we can actually sign off on this leave of absence. So as a sort of a final step, we can document this by dropping off a confirmation letter into the correspondence folder before closing the case. So we have a correspondence letter prepared, which we can drag and drop easily. And we can go ahead and close the case after this is finished uploading. So it took a bit of time for it to actually upload, but it's already here now, and we can go ahead and close the case. So from the perspective of James, he can go back to his ticket page and open up the Core Content Workspace widget, or tab off to the side here, and he'll be able to see that newly uploaded document. And just giving it a quick read-through by opening up the preview panel once again, he can see that his leave of absence has been confirmed at that specified time frame. And so this concludes our demo for an HR use case which utilizes our Core Content integration. As we have seen, accessing content and collaboration through this exchange of content is done seamlessly with no effort.